But I think the thing is that management and another conversation my wife and I have had is around the fact that people are promoted to management roles when they're not born managers. They might just be good at their job, okay? So you'll just okay, Jono's really good at, sales. Righto, Jono's been here 3 years. Jono, you're head of sales now. You know what I mean?
Well, that's where the Peter Principle came from originally, was the fact that, this person is really good at their job. And what happens is there's a position here further up the tree, if you want to use the example, because we're going to talk hierarchy here. So what happens is this person has been really loyal, fantastic worker, really great frontline service. They know the organisation, they get along with everyone loves them. They could do that job. So what happens is they put them in that job, and this could start young in your career, but they don't get the same orientation because they've been here for ages. And they're really liked and do everything. They do their job really well, so they haven't been coached to see, can they make the transition to the next level? Yeah. And so then what happens is then there's another job that comes up and they're promoted again, and they want to have the trust of the employer because they've been trusted. Oh, how great is this? They've adjusted their money, living, etc. But then it gets to the point where people are thinking that promotion is actually more success. But, some of the greatest movers and shakers in the world still remain front line. They don't have to be a leader because there's a whole lot of things in being a leader. But the worst bit is most organisations don't train people into the position. And it's become a habit. And it came around some thinking that evolved back in the 60s after the war, 50s and 60s.
I completely agree with what Ed said about a lot of people end up in management roles that maybe weren't necessarily suited to be there, but they were just good at their job. The perfect example is a carpenter who becomes a builder, right? Who goes through their trade.
Site manager
They might be really good at their trade, and the natural progression and sort of as high as you get in that trade is to, go up, become a builder, be the top dog. But just because you're good at being a carpenter, a builder's job is not carpentry. A builder's job is management, leadership, quoting, being a people
being
person,
a salesperson,
all of that sort of stuff. But the natural progression is to go to that role. And I feel like so many people go to that role completely unprepared, but they feel like they should be good at it because they were good at the practical skills to get them there.
And also too, you want to be good. You want to be recognised. It's really a privilege. But you can go through career stepping up and you get really further up in your career and actually being promoted to your level of incompetence, and now you're getting fearful of being who's going to find out. So that's sometimes where the frilly lizard comes from. The frilly leader is because they're protecting their position. I want to probably give a bit of balance with that because I'm very conscious that you're going to have some very highly educated people here that are in management roles. There are some fantastic leaders, and their team will know they're a fantastic leader because they're the ones that they understand what everyone's strengths are. A good leader can be someone from the floor that can work all the way through, and there's some amazing examples. But often it's the case of the people who make the decision of the promotion haven't actually given them the education, the background or the understanding, and they make the assumption and the person says, oh yeah, I'd love to do it. And we also seem to want to accept, well, if someone's in a managerial position, they're of more value. That's not the case. And there's probably plenty of managers who'd love not to be managers. That's what I love about, I can't say this.
Go on.
You've already started.
Well, COVID-19, it really grosses me out that so many families have lost family members. But COVID-19 is the one chance you'll get in history where everybody has actually had to stop. And whether you're someone who's still got a business going now or you've got all your team have been sent away, there were plenty of managers in there that looked at COVID-19, oh, thank God, I don't have to have an excuse to sack this person, or I don't have to have that conversation, or, yeah, look, I wasn't really doing well. And there'll be a whole lot of people at home saying, look, I wasn't really liking that job. I really love being at home. And there'll be others who've gone home and said, oh, look, I don't want to be in a career where it's so risky like this, where I don't lose my job. So this is going to be a reboot for lots of people and leaders too.
Yeah, 100%.
If they get it right, this is their one chance where they can rebuild an organisation and they can plan to hire the right people in the right jobs And if you get everyone where their strengths are, their work strengths are and their preferences, that's how you create synergy. It's like a rainbow. You've got to make sure you got all the varieties of people in the right jobs.
What about people who are in a leadership role whose intentions are really good and they don't fall under that bullying category or narcissistic or anything like that? They're just maybe not qualified for the job, but they mean well and they want to do a good job and they're trying to make things work. And the best example I can give of this at the time was the last year that I worked for Norcon.
Yeah, there you go. Pump up your tyres. Get the tyre pump ready, Ben.
No, this was
No, I'm joking.
This was because this was probably the most stressful year of my life.
Yeah.
Right? When we had, how many we have? About 10?
That was a nightmare. Yeah,
There's
at least. Yeah.
So we had 10 workers on the site, 10 carpenters. And our boss, our builder at the time, had a bit of a mental breakdown and had to walk away very suddenly. And there was nothing in place in any sort of hierarchy to
succession planning, which very few people do,
to keep things going. And at the time,
to frame it, this was an organisation that had no flow down of information. It was just at the top, and then that was it. So,
but at the time, I was like, righto, there's 10 blokes here, and they're all going to be out of a job if someone doesn't do something. So I just put myself in the office. I said, right, I'm going to do this. We're just going to keep this thing going, and I'll keep it going till our boss at the time comes back.
Yeah.
But I had sleepless nights, the anxiety, I'm a good communicator. I was always communicating with the boys. That's my number one thing, to make sure that all the lads are happy. But in the office and, running of things, quoting, I was out of my depth completely. But someone had to do it or there were going to be 10 blokes who were out of work. And my intentions were solid. Yeah. And I was learning on the fly and I was doing long hours and it was very stressful.
Very long.
Yeah, but it was, completely out of my depth. And I think probably the toll that it took on me at the time, it was a good thing in a way because it was a real growth, phase. And it was like, I'm always prepared to do the jobs that no one else wants to do. But it was it wasn't the right time for me, and it was hard. It was really, really hard. And I reckon there's probably a lot of leaders out there who end up in situations like that who are just a bit out of their depth.
Yeah, well, I reckon yours is isolated to the fact of how shit it was. As in, I don't think there's many people that are dealt, but very similar situations. Yeah, your situation was full on.
But it was
full on.
But he was passionate about wanting to support the aim of the goal. I've had the benefit of working across industries, and so therefore, when someone has only worked in their industry for a long time, and they might swap slightly, they think that their industry is different from everyone else.
Yeah, but that's trade. But that's trade-based businesses that, to a T. And what I was saying before, it's not, everything that we've done here with our business and our employees has been around culture, internal culture.
Yep.
Being very transparent, open, honest. This is, who we are, how we operate, how we do things.
You've hired things on a values base. The people that you've got, even if you're different, your values are actually matching.
But tradies, it's so hard to find tradespeople, right? Like I've got mates that have been looking for builders or chippies since I moved to Brisbane 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Like it's a nightmare to find chippies, right? So you've just got to take the blokes you can get. Yeah. But then there's no sort of – that's sort of where the divide currently is between, lack of a better word, like office employees and then trade-based employees. There's really not that flow through of investment into staff and culture compared, I don't think.
Yeah. I think it's across all areas because people get so busy being busy.
I'm so sick of that word.
Yeah.
But it's very true.
And
they've got goals such an excuse though.
But they're oblivious to the people. That's why I went back to that. The change here is all of a sudden now there's been a level playing field and everybody's in it together. You could infect somebody else's mother or grandmother or whatever else. So there's been a whole lot of different thinking. But a lot of that business approach is falling apart. It doesn't work because you know, there used to be an old saying years ago, which you hear it all the time, but I don't see that it's actually mirrored in people's actions, which is, you know, the most valuable resource is a human resource.
So you've just stolen I was just about to pipe in with that. Look at that. Top of the list.
Hang on.
It's just been pinched.
Is
I pinched it off your website. I was going to say, this is what I read. It's stuck with me so much I've written it down, and you've just gone and bombed it. But
I was going to say, there's a bit of collusion going on here.
Human resource is your greatest asset, which is so true. I mean, we'd be nothing without the people we've got, and all business is the same. It's the people you've got in there to continue to make it happen. You know what I mean? But it's not, people aren't investing into that.
Well,
why not?
I think people are either gone and answered the ad and they've ended up in a job that's not necessary. So the money's been the criteria. And right now, you know, this is topical now where people haven't got their jobs, and some are those that have, they're really grateful. So it's very conscious that this is a subject you have to be careful with at the moment, because immediately I can have a whole lot of people bird up and say, well, that's not the right way to think. But if the ads were right and the planning was right beforehand, and there was a longer term strategic thinking, which we happen to have the time to be able to do that while people are idle instead of watching the bins being taken out on Facebook. So if you actually spend a bit of time reviewing that.
You can see when you got that. It's just like
if you use that time to actually think about, well, what are the tasks that are associated, what are the skills that are needed, and then that was mirrored through. It's a bit skewed because everybody's so busy chasing money and everybody's so busy getting the business to survive, and business owners have a lot of responsibility. They've got a team of people, and they don't dislike those people. Those people are actually, you know, there are bad leaders and good leaders. It's just that it's like the news. You always hear the bad ones first.
Yeah.
And they've got a mortality rate, a mental mortality rate. They create brain crush injuries all the time, but no one sees the injury, so they expect people to work.